Welcome to Building on the Light. I'm Tammy Renee, your host, and today I'm excited to welcome my guest, Eric Aroca. He is a keynote speaker and he speaks internationally. He's the author of From Burnout to Brilliance, which is a book that is targeted towards teachers. A great book, though. It has great life lessons, because we all tend to burn out, in our life at some point. So great book there. And also Live the Life You Have Always Imagined, which, I mean, that's a title I could grab from you, Eric. I love that title. He's a leadership and culture strategist, podcast host of the Live the Life podcast. So Eric, when I was looking at some of your posts and in some of our discussions in the past, you talked a lot about, you give a lot of tools that people can do to help them progress and work through hard things. And you've got such a positive, go-getting attitude. I just really wanted to have you on here. And recently you did a post about self-care because September was Self-Care Awareness
Yeah.
Month. And I loved this quote that you said, when we take care of ourselves, we create the capacity to truly live the life we're meant to live. So I want to ask you, I've been curious, what are the things, what's your personal journey that kind of led you to that understanding about the importance of self-care? If you have stories you'd like to share, that would be
Yeah,
great.
you bet. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. What a treat it is for me to be on with you. I've really enjoyed all of our conversations and just so appreciate all of your support on all of my postings. And so thank you very much. That is a great question. When you asked me to come onto the podcast, the first thing that came to my mind was to maybe share a little bit about my past. And it's due to dyslexia. So to just kind of wrap it up into a little story for you, that won't go too long. I when I was 30, when I was in my early 30s, my son was in first grade, and when he went to first grade, the teacher pulled us aside, my wife and I aside, and said, "Hey, something's off a little bit. Like something is just not, all cylinders aren't firing, right?" And so we were like, what are you talking about? And like parents will, right, get defensive. But we talked about it and we said, yeah, we really can't, like, bury our heads in the sand. There's definitely something going on. And so we took him to our family practitioner, and we told him what was going on, that he was not, being able to sit still through a lesson or through a story and just all these other things. And so they gave us a questionnaire, and one of the questionnaires said dyslexia on it. Okay. And I went through and I was filling it out and I answered all the questions, and it was basically yes. I could have just drawn a line, right, and said yes to everything for him. I handed it to the doctor, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to go score this, and I'll be right back." And I said, in passing, as he was leaving the room, I said, "By the way, I answered yes to all of them as well." And that was all I said. Okay. And it was kind of in jest, kind of like, "Hey, by the way," right? And so he comes back about 15 minutes later, and he basically tells us that, "Hey, your son has dyslexia. It's pretty severe. He also has attention deficit disorder, right? ADHD or ADD." And it seems like his generation of kids, once he was diagnosed, we found out that half of our neighborhood had it. Their kids had it. So I don't know if he really did or not. But anyway, that's what they told us. And so I said, "I have what? I have dyslexia?" And it was probably, it was one of the great days of my life, because I had grown up with the notion that I was either one, lazy, or two, stupid. That's what I grew up believing. So when I was in fifth grade, fourth grade, I was 9 years old. My family migrated to the United States. I'm originally from Chile. We came up to the United States, and we lived in Utah. It was great. Loved it there. It reminded me a lot of Chile because of the mountains, right? The Andes Mountains, the Rocky Mountains. So there were some similarities, and I really enjoyed it. But I couldn't speak the language. But I had a bigger problem than the fact that I couldn't speak the language. I had the problem that at that young age, I couldn't read in my native
Mm.
language. So now I'm having to learn to read in a language that is totally different, and I can't read it. I can't pick it up. Like I picked up the language, pretty I think pretty quickly because I was a kid, and I was surrounded by kids who spoke it all the time, and it was like that survivor mentality kind of kicks in, and you're like, it's do or die, man. It's either you learn to speak or it's gonna be ugly.
Right.
So I learned to speak pretty quickly, but I never got the reading down. I was in sixth grade when Mrs. Chapman pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I need to do a reading assessment for you." So she sat me on her big what were those beanbag chairs, right? Those beanbag things. It was giant too, like it was bigger than me, right? So I sat next to her, and she gave me a book, and it's a chapter book, and she said, "Okay, just start reading anywhere." And I couldn't. I just stared at the pages. I just couldn't read it.
Oh
So
man.
my scores were so negative at that point. She didn't even have room on her chart to the left to put down my negative scores, because back then everything was done on paper, right? There was no computers. And so that's kind of how I grew up. I remember being in 12th grade, and in 12th grade, my English teacher asked me to read a passage out loud. I think we were reading Macbeth or something like that, right? And so she asked me to read, and I declined. I just said no, like I always did. I always declined for good reason. And she
Yeah.
said, "No, you're going to read it, or you're going to fail my class." And so I stood up, tried to read it. To be honest, do not know what I read or what I said, because it wasn't any of the words that were on the page. And
Oh
she pointed
my.
at me and said, "You're stupid." So there again,
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
reinforced that I was lazy or stupid. And I truly believed it. I grew up believing that I was lazy and stupid. That's just
Oh
how I grew
my.
up. The people
Wow.
that were around me called me lazy or stupid, because if you don't get your homework done, you're lazy. If
Oh.
you can't read, you're lazy. And then it's
Oh.
just easy to just say, well, you're lazy and stupid,
Well,
right?
wait a minute. So at least Mrs. Chapman, she noticed that you had a problem. Was it she wasn't aware enough of dyslexia or anything like, so there was no plan for
So in the
you to?
80s, there was no such thing as dyslexia. In fact, the
Oh,
Cosby, remember the Cosby Show?
yes.
Okay, in the Cosby Show, they had an episode where Theo has dyslexia, and that's the first
Right.
time dyslexia really hit the mainstream. I mean mainstream, right? Because
Right.
back then everybody watched the Cosby Show, right? It
Right.
was the show to watch, and
Right.
so that kind of brought light to it. But back then, nobody was diagnosing anyone with dyslexia.
Wow. So you just
No
got
one was.
labeled. I can't
You
believe you
got
went
you got
clear.
diagnosed as lazy and stupid. That's the diagnosis.
How did you
So
get through that many years of school?
I don't know. I'm a
Oh,
good
gosh.
BSer, and I BS'd my way through everything. But I couldn't BS my way through a diploma because I failed that English class, which which I was short a quarter of a credit in English.
Oh man.
Now, I can blame my English teacher. I can blame my counselor. I can blame you. I can make a list for you of people I could blame, but essentially, I've learned over the years that the blame lies 100% on me. It's not 75, 25. Nothing. It's 100% on me. That's where the blame lies. Because I knew I failed the class. I knew that I needed to do a packet or make up the class, make up that credit in somehow, and I didn't do it. So I did not graduate high school, and that was
Oh
a tough
wow.
one because my girlfriend graduated. We were in the same class, same school, and I went to graduation, and I sat with the audience. I sat with everybody else because I wanted to support her. and I ended up marrying her. So I figured I better show up and support her. She's my wife now after 35 years. But Mrs. Chapman was really the one that sparked the idea that I could maybe learn how to read. So
Wow.
she said she was reading The Outsiders to us. So every day before recess or before lunch, she would read a passage of The Outsiders. And I mean, that's just an American classic by S.E. Hinton. I love that book. It's my favorite book. And so she would read it to us. And then because we were in sixth grade, well, we would go and act that book out every day. And so basically it was the socialists and the greasers. I was a greaser. We literally would fist fight every recess because that's what was going on in the book. And we literally acted out the book at every recess. So I don't recommend that any teachers read The Outsiders to their fifth or sixth graders.
Oh,
Wait
goodness.
until they get to seventh or eighth grade. But she said, you can't read a chapter book. And again, I just kind of felt that, stupid, that
Right.
just that stigma.
Mm.
I just felt it. But she came back the next day and she said, this is what I want you to read. And she pulled out a Captain America comic book. She had Captain America and Spider-Man. I didn't know who Captain America was
Right.
or Spider-Man because growing up in Chile, you just don't grow up with superheroes. Our superheroes are soccer players.
Yeah.
They're not make believe. They are soccer players. That's who our
Right.
superheroes are. So I had to learn about Spider-Man and Captain America, but I picked up a Captain America comic book and she just said, start looking at the pictures and just tell me what you think the story is about by just looking at the pictures. So I would give it my best attempt and I would get pretty close. And sometimes I wasn't close at all. And so she would kind of steer me in the right direction. And then slowly but surely, I started reading, the little captions, right? I started reading the bubbles. Right? I started reading the little captions. But it was very slow, very methodical. I didn't know I knew my ABCs, but I didn't know the sounds of my letters. So when I learned to read through memorization. So if she said THE is the, I wouldn't remember the sound that it makes. I would just remember that it's the, and I would memorize it. And so I would be reading along, right? And when I saw the word the, I would get excited and like basically shout it out. I'd be like, the, right? Because I was excited. I
Yeah.
recognized the word. I remembered that one. So that's
Yeah.
how I learned to read. So when I'm 30 years old and taking my son in, it was a liberating moment. It was the first time in my life where I could say, I'm not lazy. I'm not stupid.
Um,
It was liberating. It's like I had this elephant sitting on me all these years. All those years, I had this giant elephant sitting on me. And when he said, you have dyslexia, and this is what it is, that elephant just lifted. That weight was gone. Now,
wow.
now I did have a problem. I didn't know what dyslexia was, but I'll tell you what, I figured out what it was, and I figured out how to overcome it. And now, if
Obviously.
you see behind me, I know it's kind of a tight shot, but if you look behind me, I call these my 475 friends. So I have about 475 books behind me in my library, and I am an avid reader,
I
right?
love
Because I
that. I
overcame
love
it,
that.
right?
Yeah, you owned it. You know what I love? I love a lot of things about your story. One of them is that Mrs. Chapman didn't make you feel stupid. I just can't believe a
Right.
teacher would just look at a student and say you're stupid. That's
Yeah.
terrible. But the other thing I love is the responsibility. We can waste our energy and time blaming people, or we can use that same energy and time to figure out how to move forward, right? Which is
Yeah.
what you ultimately did. right?
Yeah.
So I really, really love that. So, I mean, that is amazing to me that you didn't even have a high school diploma. Knowing you, coming in at this stage of your life and seeing all the amazing things you do, the books you've written, your articulate way of presenting yourself. So that is what a beautiful testimony that truly, regardless of what we have to go through, we can build a good life, right? We
Yeah.
can overcome our trials. So I love
Yep.
that. So tell me, so what was the process a little bit? I know this isn't really what the podcast is about. Well, what was the process of figuring out how to deal with dyslexia? Is there something brief you could share about that?
I think number one is just understanding what it is, right?
Okay.
And understanding that for me, it was just uh, realizing that I wasn't lazy and I wasn't stupid. That it was simply is that I learned differently. That's it.
Yeah.
I had my own way of learning things, and that's really what it was. Once I realized that, once I just embraced that, not the oh I have dyslexia, because I know a lot of people who embrace the fact that they have dyslexia. They hold on to it. It's who they are. They're the
Yeah.
dyslexic. They just I'm never letting go of that. I didn't. I didn't
Right.
embrace it. I embraced the fact that I wasn't lazy and I wasn't stupid,
I love it.
but I
I
had dyslexia.
love it.
I just
Right.
had this thing that I needed to figure out how to overcome. And so
Right.
really how I overcame it was just I forced myself to read. I still remember really the first book I ever read was Jurassic Park, and that was at work. And it took me it was a paperback copy that was being passed around to everybody at work. And I worked kind of a night shift, and it was boring, right? It was slow. And so we all
Yeah.
had downtime. That book got passed around to the entire company, and everybody read it in like 3 days. It took me 3.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Everybody was like, "Are you done with the
Determination.
book yet, Eric?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm not done yet." Right? I am reading at my own pace, at my own level. But
Right.
you find tricks. There's these. Oh, there I have one right here. I have like these readers that you can buy. These are pretty fancy, but there's these readers. This one's a wide one. They come much smaller like this as well.
Right.
So these are like paragraph readers. And so you literally just put that on your page, and it keeps your eyes from wandering off. Because when I
Oh.
read, I don't read from left to right like everybody else. I read like this,
Oh.
right? So my eyes
Oh.
will wander and I will just be all over the page. The reader keeps me focused on that paragraph. And I prefer to use the line ones because it goes over just the line that you're reading. And so
Right.
once I put it over the line, I can read it because I memorized all the words. I mean, every now and then I'll come across a word that I don't recognize, and I'll have to ask somebody what is that word, because I've never seen it before. But if I see it one time, I'll remember what it is, and I'll
Wow.
don't have to sound it out, don't have to do anything. I just know that's the word. Boom, and I can. It's
Wow.
kind of weird. It's kind of strange, but
Wow.
so there's lots of tools, right? There are so many tools, but it was just I think for me it was just the power of having that realization that I wasn't lazy or stupid, that dyslexia was something that I could overcome. Now, do I have dyslexia today? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. It still rears its ugly head. I still don't like to read out loud. I remember a few years ago for my church, my wife was in charge, I think, of an activity or something, and I mean, she may not have been, but I got basically coerced into reading a passage about Christmas or something like that. And everybody was like, "Oh no, you can do it." And I'm trying to be polite and being like, "No, no, I don't want to read it like this anyway. Somebody else should read it." "Oh no, no, we love when you speak and blah blah blah." Okay, me speaking and me reading are two different things. Okay. I was like,
Oh,
"All right, fine, I'll read it." And I read it, and I had beads of sweat just pouring down my face because I was so um I don't know, I was just so embarrassed. I
Oh
still don't like
man.
to read in public, out loud to people.
Right.
I can do it if I know the material and if I've had time to practice and know what everything is, great. But if not, oof, I would rather not do that.
Wow.
So it still
Wow.
rears its ugly head.
Right.
I'll still like be out somewhere and I'll look at a word and go, that can't be right, you know. And so
Yeah.
I still catch myself, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Like it's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, you're very accomplished. And I so love this story because dyslexia isn't who you are. It's just a part of what you deal with in your life. And I know for me, with my experiences, totally different experiences. Fortunately, I didn't have reading struggles on top of everything else. But still, like being an abuse victim, you feel stupid, you feel ugly, you feel all these things. And my freedom came the same way is when I realized I wasn't stupid, I wasn't ugly, I wasn't worthless, or, all the things that came with that. So,
Mhm.
there's such empowerment for really just owning who we really are, not who
Yeah,
our circumstances or other people tell us we are, but who we really are. So I
yeah.
just love that. So how does this all dovetail into your self-care philosophy?
Well, it's because I think you got to find tools. I think you got to find ways to overcome all this garbage, right? To just
Yes.
to just get on top of it and just move on with your life because like you said it doesn't define who you are, but so many people allow it to define who they are. It wasn't just the fact that I couldn't read. Like I remember taking a career assessment test. How do you take a career assessment test if you can't read? I wanted to be a wildlife biologist,
Oh, wow.
right? That's what I wanted to be when I was in seventh and eighth grade when I took this test, and the results came back said you're going to be a sanitation worker. Now, nothing wrong with sanitation workers. I am deeply grateful for the sanitation workers that come
Right.
every Monday and Wednesday in my neighborhood, and I love them and thank God that we have them to and that they do the job that they do. But that wasn't for me. That's not where I wanted to go. So I was always pigeonholed. I was always put in this little box or this little box because of my bout with dyslexia, right? So
Right.
someone, so I would say the first realization, I would say like the first tool that really hit me hard was when I was about 15, 16 years old. I had a good friend um, that really just helped open my eyes about Jesus Christ. And
Hmm.
I will tell you that once I was able to just kind of like put this at his feet and say, "Hey, this isn't. I don't want to carry this burden alone." And I realized that he kind of he paid for my suffering. He, he paid for
Yeah.
that. He suffered
Right.
for that already. I didn't have to suffer it alone. And I didn't have to say, "Well, you don't understand how I feel," because he was the person that really understood how I felt over all these long, period of time. He understood it because I mean, I didn't meet very many people that ever had dyslexia until well into my adult life,
Right.
right? So who was I going to say, "Oh yeah, that person knows how I feel," because no one talked about dyslexia. It wasn't in the
Right.
mainstream. Nobody cared. Nobody even knew it existed unless you had it. But
Right.
so that was the first thing. Is just realizing I don't have to suffer this alone. Somebody already suffered this for me. Somebody else already knows exactly how I feel, like exactly how I feel.
Right.
And that was liberating for me. That gave me hope. That gave me like a sense of empowerment that I had never
Yeah.
felt before.
Right. It's,
The second thing
oh, go
the
ahead.
second thing was a good friend gave me a quote. And since this quote, this is the first quote anyone ever handed me and said, "Hey, this might help you." So the quote is by Henry David Thoreau,
Okay.
uh, and it's go confidently in the directions of your dreams and live the life you've always imagined.
There you go. Oh, that's where you
Shameless,
get that.
shameless,
Okay.
shameless plug, right? Now, that quote was incredible because I remember um, in high school, for example, them saying that, the administration or the staff saying, the teacher saying, hey, it's time to apply for colleges. It's time to go take the
Right.
ACT or to go take the whatever test for entry to get into college. And I remember thinking, well, I want to go to college.
Right.
But then the realization was you're lazy and stupid. So
Mm.
I
Oh
never applied to
man.
college, not once. I had no
Mm.
idea that I would ever go to college. I had
Wow.
even graduated in high school. I had no hopes of ever graduating in high school. I didn't graduate high school till I was 25, and that was by accident because of an employer, total accident. And I graduated high school. I was like, well, I'll take it. Yeah, you know.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. What a gift, right? Out of nowhere.
yeah, but that quote gave me direction. That quote has been in my head ever since. Think about it. Go
Yeah.
confidently in the directions of your dreams. It does not say blame everybody else for your problems.
Right.
That's not what it says. It says for me to go confidently towards what I want to reach, what I want to become. And then if I do that, I can live the life that I've imagined. I did not
Right.
imagine living a life as a sanitation worker.
Right.
That's not what I imagined for myself. Now there
Mm.
was reality too. I had to be honest with myself and think, oh, am I going to be a wildlife biologist? I can't even pass biology, right? So there was a little bit of a reality check too, right? And that's
Right.
good. Keeps you grounded, keeps you sane, right? And so, okay,
Mhm.
no problem. If I'm not going to be a biologist, well, then what's it going to be, right?
Yeah.
But
Wow.
still, you can go confidently in that direction.
I
And that
love
just,
that. Just accepting your boundaries, but not letting them limit you. Just
right.
allowing your boundaries to kind of help direct you into a good place. I love that.
Yeah, I think
Very
it
good
acted
stuff.
more like just a sense of I have limitations. These are my boundaries. I know that they're there. Okay, you can stay back here because I'm going this way, right?
Right.
My boundaries, my challenges are behind me. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
This is where I'm headed. I'm not looking in that rear view mirror. I just need to know that they're there. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
going that way. And that's what it
Right.
allowed me to do. So when I became a professional speaker, 11 years ago now, I think, my format, my main message was live the life.
Right.
And I've been teaching people to live the life ever since. Right.
Right.
It's become my leadership model. Like I have a live the life leadership model. I teach it to everybody that will listen, right? Because it's the principles, it's the values that I lived in order to help me live the life I imagine as I went confidently in that direction.
Right. And I love that confidence. Oh my gosh, you have to go confidently. Somewhere in you, you got to find the confidence, fake it till you make it
Yeah.
kind of thing or whatever, because confidence really fuels, right? It fuels us in our direction. And I think it helps us to find the joy and the happiness along the way too, if we can
Yeah.
just approach it confidently, not worry that we're not there yet, but just do the journey, right? That's going to ultimately get us where we need to be.
Yeah. I,
Beautiful.
I
I really like that.
I think those are the two things that really propelled me forward, right? That really
Right.
just ignited that fire and where I could say I'm going like I said I'm pretty realistic, but back then I would say I was pretty negative, right? I was kind
Oh,
of a
really?
negative person, probably
So
not
wait, wait,
great to
wait, wait,
be
wait.
around.
So you can overcome that because you are probably the least negative person
You
that
can.
I
You
know that
because
I've
I was
talked
that
to.
person. I was like, and maybe not I mean, I guess it depends on the sense of negative that you want to be, but I was a negative person. I was like, well, I'm never going to college. Well, I'm never
Mm.
going to have a good paying job. I'm going to be a blue collar worker. I'm going to be a labor worker. I'm going to have to figure out how to swing a hammer because there's nothing else in life that I'm going to be able to ever do. And I didn't want to get married. I no
Oh, wow.
thank you. Like no thank you. I had no because I'm someone's going to be depending on me. Hell no. That's not going to
Mm.
happen,
Oh,
right? I'll,
wow.
I'll live. I'll live as
Wow.
a bachelor. I'll be just fine on my own. Like I was negative. I was a totally negative person, but
Wow.
allowing Christ into my life and then that quote and really living it. And I can't tell you that. Oh, that quote hit me, and then I read it, and then it was like, oh, my problems are. That was just the beginning. Like I had to
Darn, I
make
was
it,
hoping that cured everything.
but it was such a fight. Like every day, every single day it was a fight. It was a drag out, like bare knuckle fight. It was, here we go, I'm punching life in the mouth and I'm going to win. I am going to
Wow.
win. I am going to be victorious today. And sometimes it wasn't even the day, it was just the hour. In this
Right.
hour I'm going to be victorious. I'm going to have a positive mindset. So when things would happen, right, when I didn't graduate high school, yeah, I mean, it was embarrassing, right? But I'm going to figure it out, right? Because I got
Right.
married. I got married at 21. So for somebody who didn't want to get married, well, I guess when you meet the right one, it's like, well, so
Yeah.
much for that idea. But I got married at 21 and had kids pretty much right away, and had five of them. So you know what I mean? It's like you gotta figure it out, and you gotta like move forward. You gotta go confidently, like you said, go confidently in that direction that of that life that you want to live.
Yeah,
Um,
take
but it was a
charge.
fight every day, every
Yeah.
single day. I had that quote. My kids will tell you I drove my family probably nuts because I am well into my 30s and I have that quote. I would type it out and I would put it everywhere. I had it up on the visor of my car. So when that visor came down, it was right there. It was on the bathroom mirror. It was on the refrigerator.
Wow.
Any places that were frequently, visited by me, that quote was there. It was on my headboard. It was on my nightstand. It was on my dresser.
Wow. So that's how
Eventually,
you
when
kept yourself
smartphones came
fueled.
along, it was on my smartphone.
Yeah. So it kept you fueled. It keeps you fueled. It sounds like it's a
Yeah,
continual thing.
yeah,
Fueled to go forward. I love that. I love your drive and your determination to take charge of your life and not let the other stuff hold you back, or stop you from getting to your dreams. Like you said, there's no magic fixes to any of it, and it can be a
yeah,
battle every day or every minute of some days. But
yeah.
great, great, great stuff. So, so how did you end up getting to be a speaker? Because you don't have to read
Well,
things out loud.
kind of a interesting thing. So I was in pharmaceutical sales. I was a
Mhm.
pharmaceutical sales rep and had transitioned from pharmaceuticals to medical devices. So I was selling medical devices. I was working for a company. I won't mention who it was, but if you want to look at my LinkedIn profile, you can figure it out pretty quickly. Hated my job. Hated every. I didn't. I don't think I hated the job itself. I really disliked working with the people that I worked with,
Well, that can make a
and
difference.
I just felt unfulfilled every day, and it was not fun. It was just a horrible experience in overall, and we parted ways, and I needed to find something to do, and people kept telling me that I was a good speaker, and this. And when I say people, I'm talking about people I went to church with. You know, they would say,
Okay.
"Oh, I love it when you spoke at church and you share, or you made a comment at church, or I just love all your comments." And like always, I'm just like, "Oh, you know, thank you,
Whatever.
that's so sweet." Like, you know what I mean? And you brush it off, right?
Right.
My uncle Julio he is a very famous life coach in Utah, in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so I I really felt like I had a prompting from God, and God basically said, "You need to talk to your uncle about becoming a speaker." And we were having a family Christmas party, so I was like, "All right, I'm not going to call him or anything. He's going to be at the Christmas party. I'll talk to him then." So I just said, "Listen, I just need to ask you about becoming a speaker." And he didn't say, "Oh yeah, let me help you. Like and blah blah blah." He just said, "Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., Park City. Here's the address. She'll be there, 7 a.m." I live in Spanish Fork. For our listeners who don't know, that's an hour, a little over an hour
Mhm.
drive, because you got to get up into the mountains in Park City. And I'm just like, oh, so I got to get up at like 5, right, to get there by 7. And he said it was something called Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the is Toastmasters? I had no idea. I was like, are we toasting? Like, what are we eating toast? Like, what are we doing? So I get there, I learn all about Toastmasters International, and basically it's a just an organization that helps you with one, public speaking skills, and two, leadership skills. That's what it is. And they give you opportunities to speak in public. They have a whole grading system and a whole thing that you can do to help you become comfortable in public speaking or leading a meeting or what have you. So I did that, and I had you can sign up to speak. They're like 5 to 7 minute speeches, right? The first 5 that I did, at the end of the meeting, everybody that attends votes for the best speaker. You get a little ribbon and everything. That's very, very nice.
Mhm.
But the all 5 times I spoke, and I'm speaking against what I would say seasoned professionals in Toastmasters, right? I'm going
Right.
against my uncle, who is a great speaker, and all these other people, and I win 5 in a row, best speaker.
Wow. Wow.
So at first, people are saying the same things that people said at church. Oh, you're really good. Hey, you should get paid to do this. Hey, I really enjoyed your story, blah, blah, blah. I get selected 5 times. After the 5th time, I really started listening to what people were saying. And then I remembered that burning feeling that I had, that I truly feel like it came from God, that said, you need to become a speaker. So without knowing how to build a speaking business or knowing how to do it correctly, I set out and started speaking. I started speaking in junior highs and high schools, um, just talking to kids and just
Yeah.
sharing my story, of living the life with them, and kind of my journey through the school system and how I overcame, eventually, right? and and that's kind of how it started. And then I went from
Wow.
that to associations, to corporate events, to everything that it is now. So
Right. So your self-care and I guess not allowing defeat to be a part of your journey, right? And that's tied into the self-care that you've given, right? That
yeah, I
you
think
figured out what you can do and you went for it.
yeah, and I think part of that self care is not just recognizing and then going for it, but to give yourself the tools that you need to make it happen. Right?
Right.
Everyone's tools may be slightly different,
Right.
just
Right.
because of
Right.
our personalities and our needs and
Yes.
whatever it is. Uh,
Yes.
mine, mine was just that recognition of who Jesus Christ is in my life. I'm a Christian, and so since moving to Texas, I mean, people here talk about Jesus Christ like you
All the
talk about
time.
snow in Utah or
Yeah.
the beach in California, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's just like commonplace. I mean, I'll have people walk up to me and say, "Hey, can I pray with you?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "What?" Like the first time that happened, I was like, "What?" Like, "What do you want to do?" But I was like, "Heck yeah!" Like, let's do it, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's that, and it's using those tools to help you overcome whatever it is you're struggling with,
Right.
because you are not your struggle. You are not your
Right. Yep.
challenge. You are not whatever label
Yep.
you've been given. You are not that. You are, and what I would always tell myself is I am a living son. I am a son of a living God who loves me. And that's basically what I would say to myself every single day in front of the mirror when I woke up. I would say, I'm a son of of a living God who loves me.
Yeah.
And if I
Beautiful.
looked in the rearview mirror, that's what I said. If I look, when smartphones came out and you see your mirror image on your smartphone, that to this day I just looked at it, I just glanced at it, and it comes to my, like, it's habit. So it's creating good habits, right?
Right.
Self-care.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself. If it's mental health, you have to find the things that are going to help your mental health. If it's your physical health, well, you may need to lose weight. You may need to change your eating style. You may need to change whatever it is, whatever self care you need. Maybe you need more sleep, right? It's figuring out, what do I need? What does my body need? What do I need physically? What do I need mentally? What do I need spiritually? And then feeding it that
Right.
self care. Feed it the things that it needs, right? For me, it was, I had to have God in my life in a big way.
Right.
Maybe somebody else doesn't have to have that, but that's what I needed. I needed to have this quote be a part of my life because I kid you not, it has fueled everything in my professional life now, right?
Wow.
It has
Mm-hmm.
taken over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so you got to figure out what it is you need and then feed it
Right.
to have that
Eat it.
self
Oh
care.
my gosh.
And
Yeah.
overfeed it. Just give it every single day. Just give it, give it, give it, and give it. Don't worry, it's
Wow.
not a diet. Just give it as much as it'll take.
Not a diet.
Because
No restrictions.
that's how you overcome it. That's how I overcame being a very negative person about myself and who I could become, to um, believing that anything is possible. That that if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to sacrifice for it, you can achieve it. Because I really believe that the greatest lie that we tell kids is that they can achieve anything that they put their mind to. That's a lie, because kids will put their mind to anything. They're never going to achieve it, because they will only achieve that which they will sacrifice for. If you're
Yep.
not willing to sacrifice for it, you're not going to achieve it. How many people do you know growing up who wanted to be an Olympian? Well, they may have been talented. Maybe they had the skill set, right? Think
Right.
about it. Maybe they were really good at running or swimming or something like that. And just on talent alone, they could have made it to the Olympics. But because they weren't willing to sacrifice for it,
Right. And
they
do the
never
work.
made it to the Olympics. And that's
Right.
what it is. It's that sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to become the person that you want to be? Because it's going to
Right.
take time, money, whatever. You might have to sacrifice, like I had to sacrifice time away from my family,
Yeah.
right? I've had to do that. And that's okay, because you're going in this direction. You're going
Right.
in the directions of your dreams.
Right. And you can move confidently and you work hard to get there.
Yeah.
Wow, so you have actually already given us so many messages of hope. And usually that's how we end the podcast, is asking you to give, if you had one message of hope for our listeners and our viewers, what would that be? So you can add another one or just restate one of the wonderful ones you've already done.
I'll just restate this one. Go confidently in the directions of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Not the life that your mom and dad have imagined for you, not the life that your spouse has imagined for you, not the life that your kids have imagined for you or your boss has imagined for you. Go confidently in the directions of your dreams and live the life you have imagined.
I love that. Thank you so much, Eric. Just so many good tools here. And Yeah, just so many good tools. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and to share what you've learned. I love your positive, strong energy, and um, I know it will inspire our listeners and our viewers. And we hope to see you next time on Building on